Welcome back. We're talking about the latest developments in Afghanistan. A heightened terror threat from ISIL and the Taliban has partners in NATO looking at what can be done to help. Still with us, Omar Samad is Afghanistan's former ambassador to Canada and France. Kurt Volker is the former U.S. ambassador to NATO, and Mohammad Ali is a senior fellow focusing on Afghanistan at the Center for Global Policy. Well, let's get back to our panel. Ambassador Samad, let's look at what's happening on the battlefield in Afghanistan. The United States in April dropped one of its biggest bombs, in fact, its biggest bomb, non-nuclear bomb, called the Moab. It targeted a cave complex in the east of the country. Was that just a display of American military might? What did it achieve?
Well, yeah, obviously it had several messages to send, and it was a singular purpose bomb. I think that on one hand, the new administration wanted to say that they are serious about fighting ISIL, ISIS, whatever you want to call them, in Afghanistan. Number two, that they were sending a message to regional players saying that we are going to do what is necessary to help the Afghans and to make sure that besides the Taliban, we don't see the emergence of another foe in Afghanistan, because ISIS is a separate foe from what the Taliban are representing. And I think that the message to the Afghan people was also very clear, that they are standing by the Afghans, and ISIS is known in Afghanistan as being not only very brutal, but also a distraction. And there are lots of questions as to why are they there, what are they doing, where are they coming from, is it really connected directly to ISIS Central in the Middle East?
Ambassador Volker, when you look at some of the sentiments that came out of Afghanistan after that bomb was dropped, I'm wondering whether this was counterproductive. We had the former Afghan president, Hamid Karzai, call it inhuman and brutal. He said it was a brutal misuse of Afghanistan as a testing ground for new and dangerous U.S. weapons.
Well, former President Karzai, even when he was president, decided that it was useful to position himself as opposing the military intervention and challenging the United States, challenging the coalition that was there. Unfortunate, but that was what he decided to do. So this is just playing that same song sheet. One additional factor that Ambassador Samad did not mention is just the tactical utility. If the Taliban fighters are using underground tunnels, a massive ordinance like this is useful for collapsing some of those tunnels. And so it's taking away some of their ability to operate. And I think there's a tactical use in addition to the political ones that Ambassador Samad mentioned.
Yeah, the thing is, after that bomb was dropped, the Taliban, at least ISIL, conducted another attack. They killed more than 20 policemen in Zabul, and they have an FM radio station in that area, which is still operating.
Yes, yes, it is remarkable how far the Taliban has come back from where they were. And I think that just illustrates that we have not been on the offensive against them. We've been in this stalemate, and we are going to have to get back onto the offensive.
Ali, is there a risk here that the use of this bomb is an indication of how the White House will conduct this war? Lots of dazzling shock and awe tactics, not much in the term of a well-thought-out strategy going forward.
Well, tactically speaking, that bomb there was a tunnel. Nothing could destroy that, neither drones nor F-16 bombers. So it was 100-year-old tunnels that were created over. So the only thing that could destroy that tunnel was a big, huge bomb. So that really destroyed and killed a lot of ISIL operatives in that bomb, on that tunnel. But, you know, the political message was mixed. The villagers who were oppressed by the Taliban, by the ISIL in their provinces, the most conservative ones, came in and thanked America and Afghan government for dropping. And one person who quoted that U.S. should drop 100 bombs in those places where they wanted it when the U.S. would never, you would never imagine that they won the hearts and minds of the local conservative tribal elders. So what Karzai or others are saying is just a political, as Ambassador mentioned, was a political rhetoric that he had been using this for the last decade. But that had a significant impact on ISIS. But at least it won a lot of support among local population, and it was a great achievement.
Okay, Ambassador Samad, you talked earlier on about support for the Taliban. Where does the Taliban get its support from, both military and financial?
Well, they have been around for almost 20 years now. And many researchers and those who look into the issue, as well as Afghans who see how things are happening on the ground, believe that the Taliban, over the last 2 decades, have benefited from the sanctuaries that exist in Pakistan. They also have benefited from largesse and financial support that has come from beyond our region, from people who believe in the Taliban mindset or the Taliban school of thought, and think that they represent a genuine sort of Islamist movement. Now, the Taliban themselves wear 2 cloaks. They wear the Islamist cloak as well as an ethnic cloak of sorts, a tribal cloak. And they have used them very effectively whenever engaged with other Afghans or with the international community. They've also been very flexible lately, but we have to also mention that the Taliban are going through transitions themselves. They have lost 2 leaders over the last 3-4 years. They are increasingly witnessing rifts within their ranks. But at the same time, they continue to enjoy a very strong level of support from those that consider the Taliban, one, as a proxy force to be used for other purposes, especially in the India-Pakistan conflict that exists. Right. And now the Russians are even starting to talk to the Taliban. The Iranians are starting to talk to the Taliban for their own reasons, which have to do with ISIS. Primarily. So, this is a cause of concern for Afghans because it can turn Afghanistan into another battlefield again. And it's a view that also is expressed by the Chinese, who think that this should not be the case, where Afghanistan has to look for stability and not more violence.
Ambassador Volker, looking at the role that Pakistan is playing, there was a story, an article in The Diplomat, that's an online magazine that focuses on Asia, pretty respected online magazine. It says that the road to peace for Afghanistan lies through Islamabad.
Yes and no. I think in part, as the ambassador just said, you've had the ability of the Taliban to find support in Pakistan as well as in a wider region. That has included some within the security elements in Pakistan. It's included the Taliban Shura that's been able to meet in Quetta. It probably includes some wealthy individuals, includes supply routes and black market activities. So there's a variety of things. At the same time, I think that there's a critical element which is Afghanistan-centric, where we can't leave that out. We are doing better, if you will, on governance in Afghanistan, on people in Afghanistan believing that there is an Afghan way forward, but it is not strong enough yet. It's not sustainable enough yet. And I think the more that becomes seen by the Afghan people as credible and strong and growing, that's going to be the real way forward, because the insurgency can thrive when there's hopelessness. But when there's hope, I think it's going to drain the support for the insurgency.
Getting back to the role of Afghanistan, is there a dilemma here for the United States? Because Afghanistan is the recipient of enormous aid from the United States, ostensibly for the fight against terrorism. But at the same time, Pakistan is seen as supporting the Taliban, which have been killing American troops in Afghanistan.
Right. Well, I think we have to be careful about saying that Pakistan is supporting the Taliban, because then you have to break that. So who in Pakistan? It's not the civilian government. It is some in the security services. It's not all of the military. In fact, the military is also fighting the Taliban in some respects. So it's a very complicated picture with Pakistan. I don't know that we can successfully clarify that with ease either. We should always be pushing on that. We're going to have to live with some mixed baggage with Pakistan. In the meantime, it shouldn't stop us from trying to get Afghanistan right, because I think there is potential and is hope there. We just haven't put the effort into it together with the Afghans and our allies over the last several years.
Ali, what about other issues that come up, especially in Afghanistan? You have the Taliban, which it gets its finances in some way through through opium, through drugs. Also, the issue of corruption in Afghanistan. I mean, there have been people who've been saying that that's a major obstacle to finding peace in Afghanistan.
Well, you just alluded to the even answers. So corruption is a problem inside the government, but most of all, Taliban have become a narco, it's like Colombian FARC, from insurgency to narco traffickers, and from narco traffickers back to a political entity. So they have become like that, which is a big obstacle. But if we manage to get on to their financial lifeline in such a way that we can stop them from drug trafficking and smuggling, and we stop them from extracting minerals and taking over all the resources, which they make multi-million-dollar. So this would kind of convince them that, or stop them from recruitment or running the large army that they have been doing now. So and that would help the international community, which they have not focused. Insurgency, of course, have multiple dimensions, but we have always focused on their external dimension, which is Pakistan's support. Right. But internally, the Taliban have, and at the regional level, they are generating multi-million-dollar economy, where Pakistani security establishment, the Iranian security establishment, the Central Asian security establishment, they all have some sort of benefit from that. Right. So as far as we don't touch that base of financial lifeline, we wouldn't be able to convince the Taliban to sit and talk into the negotiating table.
Ambassador Samad, very quickly, I've just got a few seconds left. We've talked about the United States' role in Afghanistan, NATO's role there. What about the regional players, countries like China, India?
Very critical. I think more so now than ever before, because as we discussed earlier, you have new players on the ground now. You have Russians showing new interest for their own reasons. You have Iranians showing some level of concern. You have the Indians who are always blamed for something or another, and they feel that they need to defend themselves. You have the Chinese who want to build roads and develop economies and make money and engage in business, and who see that there are barriers. And I think that we need to engage all of these players in a constructive manner. And I think the message that will come out of Brussels has to be one that, on one hand, says we will fight terrorism and anything that's a threat, but at the same time, we will encourage anything that is productive and constructive.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us.